The orbital bombardment began without warning. Captain Sarah Chen watched through the reinforced viewport as violet energy beams tore through Manhattan's skyline, vaporizing buildings and cascades of molten steel and glass. The emergency klaxons in the UN Defense Command bunker screamed their futile warnings 3 minutes too late. She'd been reviewing supply manifests when the first beam struck. Now those manifests meant nothing. The Galactic Imperium had announced its arrival not with diplomacy, but with fire. "All defensive satellites are down," Lieutenant Park reported, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. They hit every military installation simultaneously. Moscow, Beijing, Washington, London, gone in the first wave. Red indicators bloomed across the holographic Earth like a disease. 73 major cities. 400 million casualties in the opening salvo. The numbers climbed as she watched. "Communications?" she asked. "Fragmented. Regional commanders are trying to coordinate, but..." Park stopped as another update flashed. Tokyo just went dark. Somewhere above them, her home was being erased. Her daughter's school. The coffee shop where she'd met her husband 20 years ago. All of it transformed into superheated plasma and ash. "Get me whoever's left in NORAD," Chen ordered, "and find out if we still have launch capability." An image appeared that would define humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. The alien stood 12 feet tall, its chitinous armor gleaming like oil on water. 4 arms, each ending in taloned fingers. A face that resembled a praying mantis merged with something serpentine. Behind it, a vast throne room stretched into darkness, illuminated by bioluminescent columns. "Primitive species of Sol, 3. The creature spoke in perfect English, though its mandibles never moved. The translation technology was flawless. "I am War Master Krellix of the Galactic Imperium. Your world has been selected for annexation. Your resistance is noted and irrelevant. Surrender unconditionally within 1 planetary rotation, or face complete extermination." Chen stared at the blank screen. Around her, the command staff waited for orders that felt meaningless against such overwhelming force. But she'd spent 30 years in uniform, climbed from enlisted grunt to theater commander, survived 2 wars and a dozen brushes with death. She hadn't survived by accepting defeat. "Status on remaining assets," she said quietly. Park's fingers danced across his console. "We've got scattered conventional forces worldwide, nuclear arsenals and hardened silos. They didn't hit those, probably figured we wouldn't dare use them. 3 carrier groups intact in the Pacific. Underground facilities in Australia, Greenland, and Argentina still operational. Best estimate, we've got maybe 30% combat effectiveness left." "Ma'am." She pulled up a global communication channel bypassing official protocols. If command structure still existed, it could court-martial her later. "All remaining forces, all surviving personnel, this is Captain Sarah Chen, UN Defense Command. The enemy has shown us what they are. They've shown us what they want. But they've also shown us they don't understand humanity." She paused, choosing her words carefully. Somewhere out there, people huddled in ruins, watching on whatever screens still functioned. They needed more than orders. They needed a reason to keep fighting. "They expect us to surrender. They expect terror to break us. They've calculated our military capabilities and found us wanting. What they haven't calculated is what we do when someone threatens our home. They haven't factored in what humans become when you give us no choice but to fight." Park looked up from his console, eyes wide. "Ma'am, I'm reading launch signatures. Someone just fired the nukes." "Who?" "Everyone. Russia, United States, China, Pakistan, India. Every nuclear power just emptied their silos at the alien fleet in orbit. Hundreds of warheads climbing towards space on pillars of fire. The aliens had superior technology, energy shields probably, point defense systems, but they couldn't have predicted such immediate coordinated madness. The tactical display showed the missiles' trajectories. 90 seconds to impact. Get our people under cover," Chen ordered. "Whatever comes next." The screen widened out. Not from another attack, but from the detonations in orbit. Hundreds of nuclear weapons, each one a miniature sun, tearing through the alien fleet with primitive fury. When the display cleared, debris rained from the sky. Burning fragments of alien ships, pieces the size of apartment buildings, fell like meteors across the planet. "Direct hits on 40% of their orbital platforms," Park reported, voice rising with something that might have been hope. "We actually hurt them." Chen watched the carnage. They'd hurt the Imperium, yes. They'd also likely doomed themselves. No species attacked the Galactic Imperium and survived. No primitive world dared strike back at their conquerors, until now. The communication channels exploded with chatter. Military units worldwide, civilian militias, corporate security forces, everyone with a weapon demanding orders, coordinates, targets. Humanity had been bloodied, but it hadn't been broken. And that, Chen thought as she began coordinating the counterattack, would be the Galactic Imperium's fatal miscalculation. War Master Krellix watched the tactical display with what his species approximated as shock. In 12,000 years of Imperium expansion, across 400 conquered worlds, no primitive civilization had ever responded to the pacification bombardment with such immediate violence. The nuclear detonations had obliterated 3 dreadnoughts and crippled the orbital bombardment platforms. Analysis? He clicked to his strategic coordinator. The primitives sacrificed their own upper atmosphere to damage our fleet. Radiation levels across their northern hemisphere are now lethal. They've poisoned their own world to strike at us. Krellix's mandibles tightened. Madness. These humans were engaging in tactical suicide, yet the results spoke for themselves. His fleet, designed to cow and conquer, had taken losses from chemical explosives and unguided ballistic weapons. Ground forces, he ordered. Deploy legions 1 through 40. I want their population centers secured before they can inflict further damage on themselves or us. 70,000 Imperial soldiers, each one worth 100 human warriors according to the combat simulations. They would sweep through the major population centers, eliminate resistance, and establish control. Krellix watched the first wave descend toward what the humans called North America. The landing went exactly as planned. The dropships touched down in devastated city centers, their shields shrugging off scattered small arms fire, Imperial legions deployed in perfect formation, their power armor gleaming, plasma weapons ready. Then the humans adapted. The first indication came from Legion 7, landing in the ruins of Chicago. Their commander reported encountering no resistance, then went silent. When Krellix demanded status updates, he received only fragments. Ambush. Underground. Losses mounting. The humans weren't fighting as predicted. They weren't defending fixed positions or attempting conventional engagements. They were hiding in their destroyed cities using the rubble as cover, striking from sewers and subway tunnels and collapsed buildings. They're using our bombardment against us, the strategic coordinator observed. The ruins provide perfect guerrilla terrain. Legion after legion reported similar encounters. What should have been a simple pacification operation became a grinding urban nightmare. The humans employed tactics the Imperium hadn't seen in millennia. Suicide attacks, improvised explosives, civilians fighting alongside soldiers. In New York's ruins, a human child no older than 6 solar cycles had walked up to an Imperial checkpoint carrying a backpack full of explosives. The resulting detonation killed 12 soldiers. In London, humans had flooded underground tunnels and electrified the water, frying an entire platoon when they pursued fleeing civilians into the sewers. In Beijing, someone had weaponized industrial chemicals, creating clouds of toxic gas that seeped through armor seals. Krellix studied the casualty reports with growing concern. 400 soldiers lost in the first planetary rotation, not catastrophic by Imperium standards, but unprecedented for a pacification operation against a pre-FTL species. Increase orbital strikes, he ordered. Level everything. Leave them nowhere to hide. War Master, our orbital platforms are still recovering from the nuclear attack. Full bombardment capability won't be restored for 3 more rotations. 3 rotations. 3 days for the humans to continue bleeding his forces, learning his tactics, adapting. Then deploy the heavy armor, mechanized divisions. Crush their resistance through overwhelming force. The war mechs descended next, 50-foot-tall machines designed to break planetary defenses. They stomped through cities, their plasma cannons reducing buildings to slag. The humans destroyed the first one with a cargo jet, loaded with fuel and explosives, piloted on a kamikaze run directly into its sensor array. They destroyed the second by collapsing a skyscraper onto it, the debris crushing its legs. They destroyed the third, fourth, and fifth with coordinated anti-tank weapons, swarms of missiles fired from a dozen directions simultaneously. Krellix realized his error. He'd brought a conquest fleet, not an occupation force. His weapons were designed to destroy starships and planetary defenses, not root out determined insurgents from bombed-out ruins. Contact the Empress, he ordered. Request reinforcements and pacification specialists. War Master. Such a request would be unprecedented. It would indicate we cannot handle a single primitive world. Look at the casualty reports, Krellix snapped. We're losing soldiers to creatures who still use chemical propellants and metal projectiles. Either we receive support or this becomes a protracted siege. The message went out. Krelix knew it would take 20 rotations for a response, longer for reinforcements to arrive. Until then, his forces would have to hold their positions and weather the human resistance. In the ruins below, Captain Chen coordinated attacks with military precision. Her bunker had become a nexus for global resistance. Encrypted channels linked guerrilla fighters across every continent. The strategy was simple: make every inch of Earth cost the Imperium blood. "We can't win conventionally," she told her commanders during their daily coordination call. "But we can make them bleed. We can make this conquest so expensive, so bloody, that the Imperium decides Earth isn't worth the cost. They'll just glass the planet," someone argued. "They won't," Chen countered. "They want our resources, our infrastructure, our population as slaves. Complete destruction defeats their purpose. So we make occupation impossible. We make them choose between withdrawing or committing forces they can't afford to lose." The resistance adopted Chen's philosophy. Every engagement was hit and run. Every fallen alien soldier's weapons were scavenged. Every captured piece of technology was reverse engineered in hidden laboratories. Humanity learned fast. Within a week, human forces were using scavenged plasma rifles. Within 2 weeks, they'd figured out how to hack Imperial communications. Within 3 weeks, they'd started building their own directed energy weapons from cannibalized alien technology. The Imperium had given humanity a crash course in advanced warfare, and humanity, with its talent for adaptive violence, was proving to be an exceptional student. Krelix watched his conquest spiral into stalemate, then began reading like a defeat. The primitive world that should have fallen in days had ground his forces down for weeks. His soldiers, elite veterans of a dozen campaigns, were dying to human ingenuity and desperation. And somewhere in orbit, in her observation ship, the Empress herself was watching. Empress Velshara had ruled the Galactic Imperium for 4 centuries. She had overseen the conquest of 200 worlds, the subjugation of 50 species, the expansion of her domain across 3 spiral arms. She had seen civilizations rise and fall, watched planets burn and rebuild under imperial rule. She had never seen anything like Earth. The observation ship's displays showed real-time feeds from the surface, humans fighting with captured plasma weapons, humans coordinating attacks across global communications networks they'd rebuilt from scratch. Humans using alien technology they barely understood but wielded with savage effectiveness. "War Master Krelix requests your guidance, Majesty," her chief advisor reported. Velshara's 4 eyes remained fixed on the displays. In one feed, a human female, young by their species standards, perhaps 20 solar cycles, held off an Imperial squad with nothing but a scavenged rifle and a building's worth of improvised explosives. She killed 3 soldiers before dying to plasma fire. Her last act was to detonate the building, killing 5 more. "What is our casualty count?" Velshara asked. 2,347 soldiers. 16 war mechs, 7 drop ships. 3 orbital platforms remain damaged. Time elapsed since initial contact, 28 planetary rotations. Nearly 6,000 soldiers lost or wounded, against a species that shouldn't have survived the first bombardment. "Show me their command structure," Velshara ordered. The displays shifted, showing intelligence gathered from intercepted communications. No single leader, no central authority. Instead, a distributed network of military commanders, civilian organizers, and improvised regional governments, all coordinating through encrypted channels. One name appeared repeatedly: Captain Sarah Chen. "This one," Velshara indicated the profile. "She's their tactical coordinator?" Undefense Command survived the initial bombardment. Chen has been directing global resistance from an underground facility. Velshara studied the human female's image. Unremarkable by most species standards. Small, fragile, with the short lifespan common to mammals. Yet, this creature had organized resistance that stymied an Imperial invasion force. "I want to meet her," Velshara said. The command chamber fell silent. "Majesty," the chief advisor began carefully, "direct contact with a resistance leader would be unprecedented." "I know." Velshara turned from the displays. "Everything about this conquest has been unprecedented. The Imperium has rules, protocols, procedures built on 12,000 years of successful expansion. None of them anticipated this." She gestured to the feeds, where humans continued their desperate resistance. "These creatures poison their own atmosphere to hurt us. They sacrifice their young to kill our soldiers. They fight with the ferocity of cornered predators and the intelligence of advanced civilizations. We classified them as primitive, but they've learned our technology in weeks. What happens when they have years, decades? The chief advisor's scales rippled with uncertainty. You believe they could become a threat? I believe they already are. Not militarily, but philosophically. Every species we've conquered has either surrendered after the pacification bombardment or been destroyed in the subsequent invasion. The humans have done neither. They've introduced a third option: perpetual resistance. If word of this spreads through the Imperium, if other subjugated worlds see that the mighty Imperium can be bled by a primitive species, she left the implication hanging. What are your orders, Majesty? Use whatever means necessary. I will speak with this Captain Chen, and I will understand what makes these humans different. Captain Chen received the communication in her bunker 3 days later. The message was simple. The Empress of the Galactic Imperium requested a meeting to discuss terms. Ceasefire guaranteed during negotiations. Location to be neutral, both parties to bring minimal security. It's a trap, Lieutenant Park said immediately. Chen studied the message. Probably, but it's also an opportunity. The Empress herself, personally involving herself in what should be a minor planetary conquest, that means we've hurt them. That means they're worried. Or they want to publicly execute you as an example. Then I'll die. But if there's even a chance of ending this war on terms that don't involve human extinction, I have to take it. You're going alone? With a small security detail? Their terms. She managed a tired smile. Besides, if they want me dead, a dozen guards won't stop them. The meeting site was designated as the ruins of Geneva, once home to dozens of international organizations, now a landscape of shattered concrete and twisted metal. Chen arrived by armored transport, accompanied by 2 soldiers armed with scavenged plasma rifles. The Imperial delegation descended from a shuttle that made Earth's best technology look like stone tools. The Empress emerged first, her massive form draped in what looked like living metal, 4 arms, 4 eyes, skin that shifted colors in the light. Behind her, 2 guards in ornate armor stood motionless. Chen stepped forward. Behind her visor, her heartbeat thundered, but her hands remained steady. She'd faced death before. This was just another form. Empress Velshara, she said, her translator device converting the words to the Imperial language. You wanted to talk. I'm listening. So small, so fragile. Yet this creature had orchestrated resistance that cost thousands of Imperial lives. Captain Chen, your species fights well. We fight to survive. Most species surrender to ensure survival. You chose defiance. You began with extermination. You vaporized our cities, killed our people. Surrender would only delay our deaths. Velshara's scales rippled, a gesture of acknowledgement.
A logical conclusion. Tell me, Captain, what would you have done if we had arrived peacefully?
That's a hypothetical that doesn't matter now. Humor me. We would have been terrified, uncertain. But we would have talked, tried to understand. Look for common ground. Chen's voice hardened. Instead, you showed us what you are. Conquerors who speak only through violence. The Imperium has maintained order across 1,000 worlds for 12 millennia. Our methods are proven. Congratulations. You created exactly what you deserved. Velshara felt something unfamiliar stir in her consciousness. Respect. This tiny creature stood before the ruler of a galactic empire and spoke with no trace of fear. Your resistance cannot succeed permanently, Velshara said. Eventually we will bring sufficient forces to overwhelm your defenses. Eventually we'll adapt enough technology to make that cost prohibitive. We've already learned to use your weapons. We've already started building our own ships. You gave us advanced technology and a reason to master it. How long before human ships start hitting Imperial supply lines? How long before we take the fight to your other worlds? Such words from a primitive were beyond insulting, but Velshara raised a hand for calm. You believe you can threaten the Imperium? I believe you're here because you're already threatened. If Earth was just another conquest, you'd never have come personally. You'd have ordered the planet glassed and moved on, but you haven't. Because we've proven something you can't afford to ignore. And what is that? That there's a cost to conquest, that some species won't kneel, that your empire is built on the assumption of superiority, and we've shattered that assumption. Every day we resist, every soldier we kill, every piece of technology we steal, we prove the Imperium is not invincible. Velshara was silent for a long moment. Around them, the ruins of Geneva bore witness to the truth of Chen's words. The Imperium had come with overwhelming force and met overwhelming resistance.
What do you propose?
The Empress asked finally. Complete and permanent Leave Earth, never return. In exchange, we won't pursue. We won't spread word of what happened here. Your empire can save face. And if I refuse, maybe you'll win. Probably you'll win. But it'll cost you resources, soldiers, time. And every other subjugated species will hear about the primitives who made the Imperium bleed. You'll face rebellions across your empire. Earth might fall, but the Imperium will be weakened. Is this planet worth that cost? The logical calculation was clear. Earth's resources were valuable, but not irreplaceable. The strategic cost of a protracted occupation, combined with the political cost of visible failure, outweighed the benefits. But there was another consideration, one that transcended mere logistics. You humans, Velshara said slowly, have shown something I have not seen in centuries. Not just courage, not just ingenuity, but the capacity for immediate, absolute adaptation. You went from chemical projectiles to plasma weapons in weeks, from planetary defense to orbital combat tactics, from primitive communications to hacking Imperial networks. What will you become in 10 years? 100? That's why you should leave while you can. Because in 10 years, we might be the ones at your borders. In 100, we might be equals. In 1,000, she smiled grimly. Ask yourself if you want to find out. The guard shifted nervously. Such arrogance from a primitive should have been met with execution. Instead, Velshara felt something she hadn't experienced in her 4 centuries of rule. Uncertainty about the future. I will grant your request, she said finally. Imperial forces will withdraw within 10 planetary rotations. But hear me, Captain Chen. This is not mercy. This is not defeat. This is a calculated decision that Earth is not worth the cost of conquest today. Should humanity venture beyond its star system, should you threaten Imperial interests, we will return with forces sufficient to end your species permanently. Fair enough, Chen replied. And should the Imperium approach Earth again with hostile intent, we'll respond the same way we did this time, with everything we have. Velshara's scales rippled in what might have been amusement. You have 20 solar cycles left on this planet before your star expands and consumes it. I suspect humanity will be long gone before then, spreading across the galaxy like the invasive species you are. When that day comes, we will meet again. Looking forward to it. One final question, Captain. Why? Why fight so hard for a species that barely understands what exists beyond its own planet? Why sacrifice millions for a home you'll eventually have to abandon anyway? The shattered buildings, the cratered Earth, the sky still choked with debris from the orbital bombardment. Because it's our home, she said simply. Humans don't give up their homes without a fight. We don't care how advanced you are, how powerful your weapons, how large your empire. This is Earth. This is where we were born. Where our children grow up, where our history lives. You can destroy it, but you can't take it without paying in blood. And apparently, she smiled. That price is too high even for an empire. Velshara regarded the human for a final moment, then departed without another word. The shuttle lifted into the smoke-stained sky, and Chen watched it go until it became a point of light, then nothing. Lieutenant Park approached cautiously. Ma'am, did we just win? Shen exhaled slowly. Around the world, human forces waited for word. Billions of people huddled in ruins hoping for salvation, and somehow, impossibly, she'd given it to them. Yeah, she said quietly. I think we did. Across the planet, humans emerged from shelters and bunkers to see clear sky for the first time in weeks. The war was over. Humanity had survived its first contact with an alien civilization through sheer stubborn refusal to die. In orbit, aboard her observation ship, Empress Velshara watched Earth recede. Her advisors celebrated the successful withdrawal, framed as a strategic repositioning rather than retreat. The official records would show Earth classified as too resource-poor to justify occupation. But Velshara knew the truth. Humanity had done what no species had managed in 12,000 years. They'd made the Imperium blink first. She pulled up the final analysis reports. Human technological advancement during the conflict had been exponential. They'd learned in a month what should have taken decades. Given time, unrestricted development, and the motivation of knowing hostile aliens existed, maintain long-range surveillance on Sol system, she ordered. I want to know the moment they achieve faster-than-light capability. You believe they will, Majesty? Velshara watched Earth disappear from view, a small blue marble that had defied an empire. I believe, she said quietly, that we have just witnessed the birth of something dangerous. A species that adapts through violence, learns through conflict, and refuses to accept defeat. We've seeded the galaxy with a new apex predator. Should we not eliminate them now, while they're still vulnerable? And risk martyring them? Creating a symbol for every subjugated species in the Imperium. Velshara's scales darkened thoughtfully.
We withdraw. We watch.
And we prepare, because one day these humans will reach the stars. And when they do, the galaxy will never be the same. The observation ship jumped to FTL, leaving Earth behind. Below, Captain Sarah Chen stood amid the ruins of New York, watching the last alien ship vanish from the sky. Around her, soldiers cheered. Civilians wept with relief. News networks broadcast the withdrawal across every remaining communication channel. But Chen felt no joy, only grim satisfaction and a certainty that settled in her bones like lead. This wasn't over. This was a beginning. Humanity had been shown the universe contained hostile civilizations with unimaginable power. They'd been given a glimpse of technology beyond their wildest dreams, and they'd been left alive to pursue it. "Lieutenant," she said, "contact whoever's left of our scientific establishment. Every engineer, every physicist, every researcher. I want a crash program on everything we scavenged from the aliens." "Ma'am?" Chen looked up at the stars, now visible through the clearing smoke. Somewhere out there, the Empress was telling herself Earth wasn't worth the cost. That humanity was too primitive to matter. Let her think that. "We need FTL capability within 20 years, Chen said. "We need weapons that can hurt their ships. We need technology that makes us equals, not victims. Because the Empress was right about one thing. We will meet again. And next time, we won't be defending. We'll be ready to take the fight to them." Park followed her gaze upward. "You think they'll come back? I think the universe just got a lot bigger and a lot more dangerous. I think humanity learned we're not alone, not special, and not safe." She smiled grimly. "And I think we're going to do what humans do best. Adapt, advance, and survive, no matter what it takes." The stars glittered overhead, cold and distant, and full of infinite threat and infinite promise. Humanity had won its first interstellar war through desperate innovation and savage determination. It wouldn't be the last. In the ruins of Earth's cities and bunkers and shelters and hidden laboratories, humanity began its transformation. From planetary species to starfaring civilization, from victim to threat, from conquered to conqueror. The Galactic Imperium had struck Earth expecting easy victory. Instead, they had awakened something they should have destroyed while they had the chance. Humanity had fought back. And the alien queen had seen. She'd seen and she'd withdrawn, and she'd made the one mistake that would doom her empire. She'd let humanity live. The seeds of rebellion had been planted across the galaxy. Every subjugated species would hear the story of the primitives who defied the Imperium. Every occupied world would know that resistance was possible, and humanity, scarred but unbroken, would rise from its wounds stronger than before. The age of human expansion was coming, and the galaxy would never be the same.